Okay, we're live on YouTube. Have a good meeting.
All right, thank you. And I'll start by welcoming everyone. This is a joint work session with the City of Depoe Bay City Council. Excuse me. Apologize for the late start, but the commissioners were involved in a labor negotiation executive session that ran a little bit long. And the first item on our agenda would be introductions. I'll let the commissioners go first, and then I'll ask the mayor to lead the introductions of the representatives from Depoe Bay. I'm Doug Hunt. I'm chair of the Board of Commissioners for this calendar year, and I see Claire's microphone is green, so let you go next.
County Commissioner and Vice Chair for this calendar year.
And
I'm Katie Jacobson. I'm the last of the three commissioners.
so we have a quorum of the commissioners. I'll turn to you, Mayor Short. And you're frozen. There you go. Your microphone came on. Although I don't have audio. Still
This is
no
Kathy
audio.
Short.
There we go. Well, we had audio for two words.
Audio is being a problem, I think.
We got that. Do you want to try to dial in on the phone?
Joyce King is vice chair. Maybe she could introduce the rest of us, or we could.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Joyce King is vice chair. Maybe she could introduce the rest of us, or take over.
Okay.
This is Joyce King.
Go ahead, Joyce.
I'm here.
Who's on?
This is Joyce King.
Okay, Joyce, we're trying to get introductions from your fellow counselors and the mayor, but we're having some audio problems.
Okay. I dialed in by telephone. I was having some issues too.
All right, well, we have,
myself.
Kathy Short.
go ahead.
I'm Lindsay Bedingfield. I'm on the Depoe Bay City Council.
Thank you, Lindsay. And we heard from Joyce.
Mm-hmm. I'm on
Kathy
the
Short.
Depoe Bay City Council.
I'm sorry, who's that?
This is Joyce. I'm on the Depoe Bay City Council as well.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. We heard from Lindsay. I see Fran. Go ahead, Fran.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Fran Reck. I'm Depoe Bay City Council.
Okay. Claudia, you must be Autumn on the webpage, huh? No, excuse me. Who else?
Claudia, can you introduce yourself? Claudia, unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
You're muted, Claudia.
I'm working on it. Okay, I'm Claudia Crum from City of Depoe Bay City Council.
Okay. Is Jerome or Autumn present?
Commissioner, this is Barbara Cheslow, the city recorder. Autumn will not be present, and I know Jerome is out of town, so I don't know that he's present.
All right. Well, even in view of a few technical difficulties, I think we've been able to introduce everyone that is either on the Board of Commissioners or the City Council. So again, welcome to all. And I always like to start these meetings by pointing out that joint work sessions, the Board of Commissioners tries to hold a joint work session with each of the 7 city councils once a year. And really it's an opportunity to talk about common issues in an effort to improve communication and work together in an effort to address the problems that we all face, whether we're city councilors or commissioners, and really improve the services to our residents and the people of our different communities. So,
Mr. Chair, excuse me, sorry for the interruption, but I noticed that one of our 3 scheduled presenters, Planning Director Anno Husing, doesn't appear to be on the call right now, and I just wonder if we have any staff who might be available to try and track him down.
Yeah, this is Casey. I will text him and reach out right now.
Thank you, Casey.
okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Thank you, Casey. Where was I? Anyhow, so we get together once a year, and the agenda's been prepared. I think most of the issues have been raised by city councilors, although commissioners have an opportunity to add items to the agenda if we wished. With that, I don't know, Mayor, if you have any other introductory comments, welcome them at this time. Otherwise, we'll move forward with the agenda.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you tonight.
All right, that audio came through loud and clear. So, all right.
Still not working?
No, you came in loud and clear for me. Yeah, I'm
Thank
seeing
you.
heads nod. So we heard you. All right, then we'll move forward. The first item would be emergency management. And I know that Manager Damaris of our County Emergency Management Department is here. Not sure what question the counselors may have had, but if you'll give us an idea, I'm sure Manager Damaris will be happy to answer.
Good evening, everyone. I did forward some read-ahead information that might be useful. I believe the subject was about emergency management, the program in general, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or refer you to additional information.
Well, this is Counselor King. I just looked through the information. It's very informative, and it was so nice to have this information. I went to Lincoln Alerts when the fire was going on, not knowing what was going on, and it was nice to be able to connect with Lincoln County to answer a lot of these questions. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I had a question, Chair Hunt.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Morris, I was curious about the role of volunteers. It harks back to the New Carissa incident, and where even though there's a lot of people willing to volunteer, there was no ability in the command structure to really accept volunteers and make use of them in a good way. And I don't know if that, I know there's a lot of people working volunteers now at like Landscapes of Love and other people out of the Brain Hall and Otis, but can you address the use of people who want to help and how that's controlled and how you can bring them on board to actually be an asset?
Sure. So local government public safety agencies are actually required to establish a process for affiliated volunteers and unaffiliated volunteers. During 2020 and continuing into 2021, we continue to use both affiliated and unaffiliated volunteers to support the continued COVID response and our Echo Mountain fire. So what I would say on the front end is we try to encourage our community members to become part of one of the known or established public safety volunteer groups. Those can be through the American Red Cross, our auxiliary communications. You have a local CERT, Community Emergency Response Team chapter, through your Depoe Bay Fire District. We also have the animal shelter, the Sheriff's Office Posse, Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue. I have general volunteers for emergency management division, and then there may be some others that are associated with cities. So I know Newport PD has their own volunteer group that they do for their Newport Police Department volunteers. So those are what we refer to as affiliated volunteers. So there's a background check process. They go through all of those things, and then they can be called up for services through their sponsoring agency or on our behalf. We called up the CERT chapters to help us during COVID and for some of the Echo Mountain fire response. So then that brings us to unaffiliated volunteers. So when a local organization or public safety and incident commander has a need for manpower or a specific source, a mission assignment, if you will, they try to draw down on their public safety affiliated volunteers first. If we're unable to meet that need, or in the case with COVID for our vaccine clinics, then there are parameters in place where a local government can utilize unaffiliated volunteers. It is also best to make sure that you go through some of that standardized practice or protocol for background checks, license verification. Some of those things can be lessened at the state level. We've seen that with the Oregon Nurses Board Association and other clinical staff, that if you're a retired nurse, you could still volunteer to give shots based under specific parameters. But local government still follows all of those and keeps very close documentation. There's actually can be a third volunteer that would be referred to as Good Samaritan. So if you had a catastrophic event and it was really neighbor helping neighbor, not necessarily called upon by a local government or public safety agency, those volunteers could be considered or viewed as Good Samaritan or community volunteers. Their hours may not necessarily be documented or recorded. We know that they happen, but as government is able to reestablish itself, it serves the community more so that local government turns them into, funnels them into an unaffiliated group, so that there are checks and balances, and you as a community member have some sort of way to validate that this person that's coming to assist you is truly there for the right reason, for the right purpose, and they're authorized to do so. County emergency management, city emergency management, those that are able to hire or staff a person, these are in our bailiwick, if you will, of our resources that we draw down from. We know most of our cities are very small. They may not have the ability to pay for staff or may not have a robust emergency management program. And that's where we come in as a county, that if you had an event that had occurred in your city and you required assistance, you would turn to the county Board of Commissioners, me as the county emergency manager, and request that manpower support. And then we would activate those volunteers on your behalf based on the mission requirements. We can also go even another level up. There's the state level. There's medical reserve corps at the state level that we can draw from to be able to get that type of a volunteer to come here. Sometimes it's not as easy because you may have to pay for their housing or feeding and services while they're here with you. So each case is a little bit different, but we do have a plan in place that we actively used last year and this year.
Thank you very much. That's a great answer.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Jenny?
I would like to hear
Yes,
some of the
update
lessons
us
learned. I'm sorry, Kathy.
All right, Kathy, you're on. And
Go
then
ahead,
Lindsay.
I was just wondering if we could hear some of the lessons learned from the fires last year and how that might be useful to Depoe Bay, particularly kind of our unique situation with really only one way in and out here.
Sure. One of the most positive things that you can do is make sure, this is a very simple thing, making sure that all of the addresses in your community are clearly identified. One that helps for evacuation if someone is coming to help you, especially if they've called for medical assistance. It helps with day-to-day emergencies. That's one of the low-hanging fruits that a community can do, is to make sure that their household, especially apartments or those, townhouses, may not be easy to see, making sure that their address is clearly labeled. Also making sure that folks that may not have a landline anymore know how to reach 911 or a non-emergency number. We find during emergency situations that affect a large geographical area, they immediately call 911. They want to get information. They want to talk to that person, but they themselves may not have an emergency, or they're just reporting something secondhand. So on our website, and we send it out regularly, we have how to call 911 and the non-emergency numbers for all of those public safety officials. So that's one way, 2 pieces of information to really get them going. Then also as a community, really trying to promote as best you can. When do we evacuate? Do you know the evacuation levels for a wildfire response? Let's see, I don't have one right here in front of me, but we have the help okay signs. And down on the bottom, it tells you what the wildfire evacuation levels are. I would say that's probably one of the most common one of the most common calls that dispatch received. I heard a notice that such and such area was be evacuated. They're on a level 2. What does a level 2 mean? It means be ready. What does it mean to go now? How do I know where I'm at in the queue? Will it grow in size? So our job as local government for public information is to make sure we get that information accessible as quickly as possible. So those are some just very short things that you can do as a community for planning, is to try and share that information to best answer their questions on their own without drawing down on dispatch services to answer questions we would hope that they already have. There are a lot more things that we will go over. We will be doing wildfire virtual presentations broken down into different modules. The last year before COVID, we did them in person for 2-hour stretches, which was A to Z. It was really overwhelming of information. And so this year we're breaking them down into 6 different modules, and there'll be a separate session specifically for each fire district in Lincoln County. So you will have an opportunity to chat with ODF and your fire chief and public safety agencies that support your geographical area, on top of attending any of the other sessions. Those will also be available on the YouTube channel. Once we go through the 2 sessions, we'll pick the best one and then we'll upload them to the YouTube so they can be viewed at any time. And that's where the sheriff, public safety, the fire district, our public information officers, and myself will be talking about our lessons learned in each one of those sessions. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll get my announcement out later this week or the first part of next week.
One thing I would just add to what Jenny just said, I would agree with everything she said, but one thing I would just add, kind of elected official to elected official, is if all of you on City Council has not taken emergency management and NIMS training yet, I would highly, highly suggest you do that. They're mostly in an online format. In fact, I think even the ones that used to be in person are now offered online. You can do that through National Emergency Management or NIMS pages. There's a whole bunch of different trainings available. They even have little links like for elected officials that tells you which one you should take. But it is very helpful in understanding kind of the emergency management structure and the chain of command and terminology that's used. So if you all haven't taken that training yet, I would highly suggest that you do.
Certainly would echo that comment. Other questions for Jenny?
Yes, Jenny, this is Councilor King.
Hi, yes, Jenny. Can you? Oh,
Let's continue with Councilor King. I think I heard her first.
Thank you. I just was curious if any of the communities that you work with have neighborhood watch or telephone trees or any way that the local people can communicate with each other.
So I believe some neighborhood associations do have the suggestion that you've done, and that may be part if they've done kind of their homework and pre-planning. It's called Map Your Neighborhood. That's a great way for neighborhood associations or neighborhood blocks, if you will, to get to know each other, Find out what resources you have. It actually has an information sheet that you can document who are my neighbors around me, to the side of me, maybe 2 blocks over. So the Map Your Neighborhood is a great way to promote neighbor meeting neighbor and determining what their resources are and how you can best use those. Specifically to Neighborhood Watch, I would refer that to our law enforcement partners. They're the ones that sort of keep tab on which community groups participate in Neighborhood Watch.
Thank you.
Mayor Short, I believe you had a question.
Oh, yes, I do. I was able to attend the Cascadia Rising 2022 initial preparations, and I'm excited to get involved in that. I have an initial meeting set up with the general manager here in Worldmark, and hope to get her enlisted into the preparations. How are those going?
Great. We are definitely the very beginning stages of our Cascadia Rising exercise planning. And for those that may not be aware, this will be the first time the state of Oregon specifically will have an opportunity to participate in an exercise with a catastrophic scenario at a national level. In 2016, we had a Cascadia Rising exercise, but it was basically our FEMA Region 10. So Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, and FEMA Region 10. This time it will be a full national scale exercise, which means everyone will be at the table, all resources to validate what our capacity is, how long it actually takes to process orders, situational awareness, and the goal being, can we communicate from your level at the city of Depoe Bay, probably by amateur radio, which you have a great amateur radio process there with your trailer and your group, and then all the way up to the national level. Do they get the information about your community specifically, how you were affected, the number of survivors, how long you could go, how much fuel you might need, and get that information reported in a summarized format all the way up to the president's office. So great exercise, lots of work to be done. And for each community, including those general public that are listening now, we can make the exercise whatever you want it to be. The county will have their overarching goals to meet our objectives, but what we will try to do is tie in those 4 days of exercise with each of our cooperators so that there's a little something for everyone. You may decide your focus area is doing a status assessment of the number of households and conducting your emergency declaration and doing it in hard copy with no computer, handwriting it out and communicating it via amateur radio. The city of Newport may be focused on something completely different. The value is that each jurisdiction gets to focus on what's important to them, but yet we all collectively communicate together at the county, and then vice versa. All 36 counties communicate to the state, and then so on. It will be a fabulous exercise. I'm very excited, but it will be a heck of a lot of work to get to that June date.
Sheriff Landers, I see you turned your microphone on.
Thank you, Chair Hunt. I just wanted to add a couple of things. As you can see, when Jenny was doing her presentation through, and even the questions that we didn't expect, and I think Casey's driving the website, but all this information is on the website. Almost every topic that she's covered is on there, and in detail. I encourage you to go through and look at that in more detail to see everything that's on there. But I think one question came up, and I can't remember who said it, but what can we do to prepare for the next disaster? Maybe it would be the best thing to do. And I think is take the trainings and the exercises absolutely serious. Take all the information we see absolutely serious. When we do the exercises, make it like it's the real as much as possible. Because when I was up talking at the Depoe Bay City Council meeting here a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how prepared we were with evacuations, and it was due to what Jenny has done and prepared us in the trainings that we did every year. I didn't expect that we'd ever be doing evacuations for wildfire, but we were prepared to do that. And we took a chaotic situation and made it the best possible. A lot of times you'll see residences and the public and citizens and others, the time they start preparing is during the disaster, and that's really too late. And a couple of examples is 2011 when we had the Japanese tsunami coming to our area, and I know Depoe Bay was affected by that. We had a very high turnout after that of people wanting to sign in, wanted to know, get information. Same thing with the wildfires. They were, during the fires, were trying to sign into Everbridge, which is fine, but really the time to do that is before, and prepare before, and do all those things that Jenny talked about, preparing yourself and your family and your city for those disasters to come. So I just want to add that, and I think Jenny's done a great job in keeping all this information current and accurate for you to review.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Other questions, comments? Jenny, I'll ask a question. Clearly with the Echo Mountain fire, the communications were a challenge. Just maybe talk a little bit about lessons learned there and things that might explain what some of the breakdowns were and how we hope to avoid them in the future.
I believe you might be referencing the public radio stations commissioner.
Well, yes, although I think there was a breakdown in social media because you didn't have internet.
Yeah.
So I certainly public radio was part of that, but there are other forms of communication that also weren't working, quote unquote.
Great, I can speak to that. So one of the things we have to keep in mind when we think of wildfire, we don't necessarily think of a technology failure. We think of areas being evacuated, wildland fire, it's out in the distance, it's not really affecting so much my personal day-to-day life unless I can see or feel the fire. But in our geographical landscape, we're very rectangular. So all of our utilities actually go along the same line of where we live, work, and play. So when a fire broke out here in Lincoln County in one particular area, it did actually affect our public infrastructure, meaning broadband, internet, cellular service in some areas. So this is sort of a secondary effect to the wildfire where you have road closures and the people themselves are affected. They are evacuated out of their home, but then the rest of the county may also be affected by that. We also had loss of power because the power grid was affected on one side and things had to be switched to the other way. And then also we had concerns if there would be a fire coming from another direction because we actually did have a fire in Waldport and then there was another one in the southeast area over by Alsea. So we had multiple aspects of information, not knowing what would be affected. Our primary infrastructure during this type of a scenario is our public safety radio communications for the safety of the first responders, both fire and law enforcement, to make sure that they can communicate to each other. That helps with evacuation of the community members, the residents, and the businesses in that area. And then, of course, telecommunications is used for our Lincoln Alerts program. If the internet wasn't working or if all the telephone lines went down, yes, that system would not be as functional as we would hope it to be. That's why we also rely on door-to-door notifications in an affected area, such as a wildfire or something significant like that. We do that also for flooding events. If we had a large-scale flooding event where we know people were going to be evacuated, we would utilize those telecommunications, assuming that they were functioning, but then we would follow up with door-to-door notifications in the hardest hit or the areas that we know that would be hardest hit. So what we try to do is to diversify and have redundancy in all of our systems. And with our public safety radio communications, pardon me, not public safety, our local radio stations, we heard that several of them were not on the air and they had varying factors, whether it was a broadband issue, emergency power generation, or in some cases, even with some of our public safety radio areas, we had generator power, but they had been running for so long that we had to continue to resupply them with fuel. So that becomes a tertiary effect, is that the generator was running, but it's going to run out of fuel. So these are all of the challenges that we do a situational assessment to make sure things are working and operating as they're supposed to, and having lots of backup plans and neighbors and friends, in our case, it would be the state or other counties, to help assist us if we find ourselves in need of additional resources.
Okay, very good. Other questions? We've got about a half hour left and a couple items on the agenda. All right, let's move forward. I don't believe that we have any representative from the planning department. I don't know what the questions may have been, whether or not Council Belmont may be able to provide some information or not. I'm not hearing anyone. Somebody from the city council have an idea what the question was or what you'd like to discuss in planning? Still not hearing anybody. Wayne, I see you turned your microphone on.
I'm prepared to answer any questions, but if there's no questions, I guess we could move on to a couple other topics.
So, this is Fran Rack. I'd like to ask a question. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So one of Depoe Bay's concerns is keeping affordable workforce housing and our concern over short-term rentals. And it would be helpful to hear an update of where the county's going with your discussions on that. We maintain we're going to have the vacation rentals, so it would be nice to hear that the county is also concerned about workforce housing and enough rental housing that's affordable. And I wanted to know where those discussions had gone recently. Thank you.
Certainly a current topic. I think we discussed some aspects of that today at our commissioners meeting. Council Belmont?
Yes, we did have an update on changes that we're looking at in our current code provisions, which regulate short-term rentals. And our program includes a business licensing approach to the regulation of these particular activities. And the things that we're looking at right now really relate to the operations generally of short-term rentals in just the unincorporated areas. So again, our jurisdiction is just unincorporated areas, not any of the cities. Each of the cities has either has its own program or does not regulate those activities within the cities. And so our focus has been on making some changes in our current program, which has been underway for about 3 or 4 years now. And looking at things such as the capacity of the individual units, what's the maximum number of people that are allowed in a short-term rental. We're looking at, because we're in unincorporated areas, a significant number of our SDRs actually are on septic systems. And so we're looking at some additional regulations to determine the capacity of those particular units based on this treatment capacity, and then also having some potentially ongoing maintenance requirements for those activities. We're also looking at our enforcement program for when we receive complaints related to those particular uses. And so we're going to amend the process we do right now to provide an administrative proceeding to deal with those particular complaints. And then I guess maybe towards the issue that Councilor Reck was talking about, the county does not currently have any kind of cap on the number of short-term rentals in the county. So we're exploring options related to a cap.
But we do have a temporary cap. That's not entirely true. I just wanted to correct that.
That is true. Right now, there's currently a suspension on any new short-term rentals in the unincorporated area, and the commissioners are considering options to either remove the current suspension of new licenses and or put in place a cap on the number of short-term rentals, and then look at some options related to that. So those are the activities we're currently engaged in an update on our program.
Can I do one follow-up, please, Chairman? Can I ask a follow-up question?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I have a hard time hearing you. Yes, certainly.
Councilor Belmont, my question really was about maintaining affordable housing, and I didn't hear anything about that in your statement.
I could address that if you'd like.
Please.
Commissioner Hall.
Well, we really don't have the staff or financial capacity at the county level to be a significant player in housing development, but I have for about 3 years now and a little over been a member of the Oregon Housing Stability Council, which is a governor-appointed position and the state's primary housing funding and policy body. For many years, the state's primary way of helping to finance affordable and various special needs development was through 4% or 9% tax credits. But then a few years ago, I was part of a work group that developed and presented several ideas to the governor and the legislature, including what became the LIFT bond program, which is financed through lottery-backed bonds. And, LIFT is starting to make an impact in the county. Festera Gardens, which I believe opened 2 years ago in Yachats, 21 workforce units, that was financed in large part through LIFT. The 110-unit Surfview Village in Newport, again, was, I think, about 90% LIFT financed. And there has been funding approval, but unfortunately, the spiraling cost of materials may force some rethinking of this. But Northwest Coastal Housing, a longtime local developer of again, affordable and special needs housing, hopes to break ground this year on an 11-unit project in Toledo. But it's a challenge. I mean, the good news last year, the state had a hand in financing 8,500 new housing units under construction, which by far was the greatest number ever. But we've got an immediate deficit of well over 100,000 units statewide. I should note that the county does partner, and this is an option open to any local jurisdiction, for instance, on both Festera Gardens and then in Yachats, and then Surfview Village in Newport. We and the local city government partnered to give the project a long-term property tax exemption, which again helps the numbers pencil out. But it is, it's unfortunately a need that has been neglected for 30, 40 years and was made worse by the wildfires. And there's unfortunately no magic solution, no magic bullet that's going to get us out of it overnight.
Commissioner Jacobson, your microphone's green.
Thanks. I would just add to what Commissioner Hall said and say that a couple of other things I've been working on related to wildfire recovery, which, sorry, we're having a juvenile interference here. One of the things related to wildfire recovery is trying to deal with housing. Commissioner Hall mentioned this. We did have, after multiple attempts, did finally have a successful grant attempt with Project Turnkey and purchasing a motel that will initially be used to house wildfire survivors in Lincoln City. I also have a $5 million ask into the state for wildfire recovery, specifically to housing, which would be used for property acquisition and or building in the North Lincoln County area for survivors that either can't go back because they're renters. The majority of people currently in hotel rooms are renters. So while that's just survivors, and I understand that the housing situation is much larger than that, getting those people, rehoused and out of hotel rooms certainly helps the cause. So those are just some updates from housing on my end.
The other thing I might add is I really see the housing issue something where the different municipalities, the cities can work with the county. Clearly, the development of affordable housing in the rural areas, which is where, of course, the county has the clearest straight jurisdiction, probably is not ideal for affordable housing when you consider access to services, transportation, and that sort of thing. So I see the county having an opportunity to work with the cities in identifying opportunities, as has been already mentioned. We waive property tax on affordable housing projects. In addition to the sites mentioned, I believe there are 2 properties in Lincoln City, Ridge Apartments, and maybe another that, again, we waive the property taxes to make those sites more affordable. But I also think that maybe there's some things that can be done to create some uniformity as far as the planning process, the fee structure, that would make it more attractive for developers to come and work within the county, rather than having different set of rules in different cities or other parts of the county. So those are some other things I think that are being done and can be done to address the terribly complex issue of housing. Council Belmont, I saw your microphone turn green.
Well, just to further about the county and actually the city of Depoe Bay and all the cities participated in a grant program with the Department of Land Conservation and Development and developed a housing strategy plan. And some of the things that the commissioners have been talking about are part of that housing strategy plan. This is obviously a county-wide issue and a county-wide problem, and in fact extends really across the state of Oregon. We're not facing issues that aren't faced anywhere else in the state in terms of the issues we got to face. And there's multiple avenues that we have to approach to solve the problem here. And I would note, just to Councilor Reck, that I think the jury's still out on whether or not the STRs, how much or do they contribute to the problem of affordable housing. That question, has come up in our discussions and workshops. We've had all sides of the equation come in and say it has an impact or doesn't have an impact. But it's important to note that, Lincoln County as a whole, 25% of the housing stock in the entire county is second homes. So it's not just STRs, it's second homes, it's other kinds of things. So it's a huge problem, and we're trying to wrap our arms around it. If you would like to have a copy of that housing strategy plan to look at some of the options that are there and things that we might be able to do together, I'd be happy to provide you with a copy of that, or you can find it actually on the county website too. But it's definitely a problem. We look at it as an issue of not just affordability, but also of economic development. It really impinges on our ability to do economic development, the housing situation. So it's definitely an issue that's number one, I think, for a lot of the jurisdictions in the county.
Mr. Chair, could I throw in one other thing? I also am involved in my housing council role, as well as networking with other county commissioners and also city officials in the state on policy options. And one bill that the Association of Counties and League of Cities, I believe, jointly brought forward this year, unfortunately, it didn't move forward in time to be considered for funding, but there is going to be an informational hearing where I will be joining a few other local elected officials tomorrow morning. It's a concept for local technical assistance grants to cities and counties, because our planning resources are really strained, and this would be focused on giving jurisdictions a little extra help in, I'm not sure exactly what form it may emerge, and unfortunately it won't be this year, but perhaps next year, direct technical assistance to give us a little more horsepower, manpower, woman power, whatever you want to call it, in terms of working with potential developers and helping tell your community's story and facilitate if someone is interested in developing affordable and workforce housing in your community, where the local jurisdiction could be a more active player in accomplishing that.
Very good. Other questions or comments on housing or planning?
I have a question. I don't know if it's planning necessarily, but I'm interested in how the county is strategically positioning itself to get some of the big money that seems to be coming down from the federal government. I'm curious if you have grant writers, if you contract grant writers, if there's some opportunities for a city like Depoe Bay to partner. We obviously don't have grant writers at the city, but I guess that's enough.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, so back about a year ago, when the first recovery package, the CARES Act, came down, I remember having a conversation with Council Belmont that the money was coming so fast and the opportunity was coming so fast, and there was so much of it, and we were having a hard time keeping track of what we were eligible for and not eligible for, that we did bring someone on by contract to help us track some of that money coming through, and actually go after that funding. And so we do have a contracted person that's been helping us over the past year to do some of those activities. And I'm happy to share, that contact information with you after the meeting or whatever for you guys to look at doing a contract with them. As far as the Recovery Act, I think all of us are kind of trying to dig into that, and it's sort of this massive piece. And if you find anyone that's completely dug through and understands it, please let me know, because I think we're all still struggling, and there's pieces we're trying to, of course, understand. We too will probably need help going after some of that money, especially for kind of the more, or I should say less direct, there's direct money coming to us, but there's also opportunities built within it. So yeah, I'd be happy to talk offline on how we can partner and understand some of those pieces that are coming through.
I might comment that during a recent commissioners meeting, our auditor made the comment with the federal dollars that are coming to all of us, that he wasn't comfortable in knowing what sideboards would come along with the money. He wasn't comfortable that those sideboards wouldn't change, and he wasn't comfortable that we knew much at all about the money that was coming our way. So I think we're all trying to learn as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to be able to put those one-time funds really to the best use as possible. And it's not free money. It comes with some, I guess, strings attached in one form or another, but certainly welcomed money that will be helpful to all of us. And I've got a cat that's going to start being unhappy with me.
If I could ask a follow-up, what is the county really focused on for some of the federal money? Like if you had things that you could use it for right away, what would be your focus with that?
Go ahead, Commissioner Jacobson, and then we'll let Council Belmont.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as I start to understand that package, there's several different pots of money. So I don't necessarily look at it like a prioritization. I look at it as a prioritization of each pot, if that makes sense. So for instance, there is a pot of money that's just coming to local governments. We're still waiting for what exact strings are attached to that, but my understanding is there is hopefully less strings attached to that money. And we've had significant expenses this year when it comes to COVID-19. Excuse me, bringing communicable disease nurses back out from retirement to do contact tracing, hiring and training contact tracers, renting space for vaccine clinics, all the mandates for vaccines, and those kinds of things. So when I look at that general pot of money, the prioritization is to pay ourselves back for some of those expenses we've had to occur because of COVID-19. There's also certain pots of money like infrastructure, which is not related to that general pot of money. There's been some talk around what exactly you can get away with when it comes to infrastructure. So for example, one of the things I'm trying to dig into is, could you go after the infrastructure piece to get somebody to help develop housing? So maybe it's not actually building the housing, maybe you actually have a housing advocate for your community paid for by infrastructure money out of the Recovery Act. Is that possible? I don't know yet. There's also other counties that use past CARES Act money to work on child care development. Lincoln County actually went after CARES Act money that came to the state in early learning for child care development. that originally came from CARES Act. So we kind of went a different route, so money directly given to us. So I guess the long route, how I answer is I guess I need to kind of understand the parameters on all of that money first. But I always feel like I got a bag of things I want funded. And the way I was taught with grant writing and funding years ago is sometimes you have to wait till the right opportunity kind of comes up. And so for me, it kind of depends on as we get more information about those opportunities, what seems to be important in terms of where those opportunities are and what's kind of going to work.
Council Belmont, I see your microphone's on.
I was just going to build on what Commissioner Jacobson was saying with a concrete example of something, because we were dealing with this today. So one of the pots of money that's coming both from the state legislature and from the federal government is really to build out our broadband infrastructure. And we just learned very recently, and we're working on today, that we've got an EDA grant for a couple $100,000, and we're doing a regional plan. We're actually doing some hiring consultants to help us determine what the gaps are in service. And this is actually intended to really provide rural broadband so that we can do things like telemedicine, that we can do education that can be done remotely, that we can do economic development and provide the infrastructure to rural communities that can participate in economic development. So this will allow us to actually put together the plan in this 4-county region, which will really, I think, sit us very, very nicely for these larger tranches of money that are going to come through to actually develop out the system. I think this is akin the way we're hearing it on a national level. It's akin to the federal highway system back in the 50s. They want to build that kind of infrastructure across the United States, that kind of capability. So that's just a very concrete example of where we got ahead of that a little bit by applying for this grant, and we're going to have that plan in place that really puts us, I think, to the front of the line when it comes to getting the specific money for development of the system in Lincoln County.
Okay, I have a dog that's going nuts because the FedEx guy just came, so I apologize for that. Any other comments on federal money? All right, I'm not sure who caller 5 is. I think maybe somebody's called in on a phone. Just trying to identify people.
It's Kathy Short. My computer died.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome back, Mayor.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right. There's nothing else. We've got maybe about 10 minutes. We started a little late. Move on to the finance department. Again, not sure what questions or information people are looking for. If you give us an idea, we have our finance director, Christina Shearer, present, and I know she'll be happy to provide information and answers.
So by way of introduction, I'm Christina. I'm the finance director for Lincoln County. I've been here about a little under 18 months.
And all of that, well, I was going to say not quite all of that time has been a part of the COVID environment.
Yes, indeed.
So again, not sure how we can help. Somebody from the city have an idea or have some questions?
Maybe could you describe what your office does and how you relate to the city?
Well, the finance department actually is in support of the county. So we run payroll, we run accounts payable. I'm in charge of the general ledger and the budget, and we also track and report all of the grant revenue and expenditures for the county. So that's reported on the schedule of federal financial assistance as part of the annual single audit. We provide all of the support services for the audit function as well.
How much funding does Depoe Bay get from the county or last year? Do you have those figures?
That would actually, I don't have those figures off the top of my head. The treasurer would have the better answer for that. She's the one that collects tax payments and does the allocations to the cities for them. I don't have those numbers at my fingertips.
We can certainly get them and provide them in an email.
Can you tell me, do you know if the distribution is ranked by size of city, or how is it distributed, that, or do you know?
It's my understanding that property taxes are allocated based on your rate, your fixed rates, and those are based on your property values that are set. And somebody's right on the ball. There it is. And so, yeah, there's your distributions are actually fixed annually based on the tax rates or the tax base.
Thank you.
Other questions? I know Christine is happy to be a source, a resource for information if people have questions. Welcome, Anna. We've concluded planning.
Got all your questions answered?
I believe so for the moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Council Belmont, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we did invite our interim public health director, Florence Portal, is here, and she might want to give you an update if anybody has any questions around our efforts in COVID. So that might be a great opportunity.
Wayne, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I was going to say the same thing. So my mind as a commissioner is thinking the same as your mind as an attorney. So I don't know if that's good or bad for which one of us. But in any event, yes, Florence Portal, who is our interim public health director and was appointed as the legal public health administrator, as was required under the law, is here. And Florence, maybe give us a quick update, and if we've got some questions in the last few minutes, happy to have you answer them.
All right, good evening, everyone. Florence Portal, interim public health director. A quick update. Well, let's go straight to it. We are seeing definitely an uptick of COVID-19 cases in Lincoln County, and that follows a trend that we have been noticing in the state of Oregon and nationally. As you may or may not have heard, we have a California variant mostly in our region, which is region 2, which is a variant that is 20% more transmissible than the original virus. What else can I say? So I think it's very important that people, even though, you know, what I was talking about this afternoon, we are all tired of this virus, and would love to go back to life prior to the virus and be able to enjoy ourselves and visit with people. I think the more we keep on practicing the very basic prevention measures that we have learned and known from, you know, for the past year now, it's going to be very, very important to help us out, and also getting your vaccine as soon as possible would really help to keep the virus from making new variants, if that makes sense. So pretty much what we want people to keep in mind is keep wearing your mask, especially when you're indoors. Keep your 6 feet distance with people who are not from your household. Keep on washing your hands on the regular, and get your vaccine as soon as you can. And when it comes to vaccine, Lincoln County is happy to report that we have the first vaccination rate in the state of Oregon. We have been working really, really hard to have, a very broad geographical access. So we have clinics in North County, in Middle County, in South County, and we have been working on specific outreach to specific populations. We had a clinic in Otis at the beginning of the month, as well as clinics that really targeted agricultural workers and people who work in fish plants. So, I mean, the team has been doing tremendous work, and I think, that's paying off. We are now focusing on providing access to the 16 and 17-year-old now that we're back in school. And yeah, there is still a lot of work outreaching to people in more rural communities. So we're shifting a little bit the focus, maintaining, of course, those larger clinics, but also starting to shift the focus and developing some mobile clinics moving forward.
I might add too that the county is at the high risk level, which I think everyone knows. And as we look at the current number of cases, which are increasing that's the best slide to show that. We expect, at least for the next 2 weeks, we'll continue to be in a high risk level. So the good news is we haven't moved up to the extreme level. The bad news is the trend is not looking very favorable. So again, the emphasis is it's been a long time, people are tired, but the best thing we can do is those practices that we know limit the spread of the virus, which is wearing the proper mask, social distancing, and washing your hands. And unfortunately, we're seeing situations where even social distancing outside has been done in such a way that the virus has spread very rapidly through a large number of people. So again, we need to be careful, and we need to keep up the effort to limit the spread.
And I would say also, just to finish up, I think one of the, and I didn't mention that earlier, but one of the realities that is new for us in public health that I learned of this morning is that we are seeing more resistance from community members when it comes to helping us prevent the spread of the disease. When we are aware of let's say we are aware of a case, the case is being reported to us, and so we're doing an investigation, and it's been harder either to reach people or for people to really be willing to work with us and help us identify their potential contacts, and for us to then help people understand the importance of getting tested, and then of also either isolating or quarantining. So, in your conversations, I think reminding people of this is very important too.
Any last minute questions? Lindsay, go ahead.
Can I ask when we might see a vaccination clinic in Depoe Bay?
That is a good question. Can I be in touch maybe with you offline, so that I don't know who would be the best contact, but I'm happy to definitely reach out and see what we can do. My email, I'll put my email in the chat, okay, so that you have it.
Certainly one of the challenges is finding a facility that will accommodate the clinic. So kind of a heads up.
We did have COVID testing here in Depoe Bay. We were one of the very first COVID testing sites in the county, in Depoe Bay at the Samaritan Clinic.
Okay.
And we could also use possibly the bus. So we might be able to arrange for something. Here's my email.
I had a quick question too.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I see a lot of people wearing the stretchy mask, I forget what they're called, the gator-like things, and from what I understand, they don't offer any protection, including some of our staff. But there hasn't been any word that has really gotten out that those types of masks are ineffective. And I'm wondering, have you done any publication? Am I correct? And if so, why isn't that being, I mean, it's hard enough to get people to wear masks, but if they're bothering to wear a mask, it should be one that's actually protective.
Right. So I believe at the very beginning of my tenure, we had some communication around masks. We could do more for sure. I'll definitely talk to the team about this. That is correct. That especially the gaiters that are not that do not have many layers are not recommended. We can communicate more, and I think sometimes also like re-communicating on how to wear your mask. Like wear it both over your nose and your mouth. I'll definitely make note of this and talk to the team. I mean, we have all of the material to communicate around this, so we can continue on. Thank you.
Well, certainly that can be a part of the communication relative to cases are increasing. We need to continue to be diligent in our efforts to limit the spread. So
exactly
part of the bigger message. Any last minute questions for Florence? If not, I will say thank you for sharing some time with the Board of Commissioners. We've got a couple of items we'll follow up with you offline. And, you don't have to wait for the annual gathering. We're certainly available to provide support and work together as you wish.
Thank you very much for meeting with us.
You bet. Mayor, I'm not sure if you're there or not, but
Thank you, Commissioners. We appreciate the time.
All right. With that, I will say.
I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate you being here.
We're happy to be here. With that, I will say enjoy a little bit of. Looks like there's still some sunlight, and stay healthy. And good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.